So in this blog, we talk about functional calling in openai. But before we go into what that is, let's look at the problem that it is solving for us, right? So I hope you have seen this video, right, where we discussed about the Q&A that we've implemented. Now, this is implemented using the embedding, right? So the way this works is when the user sends a query, it goes to the search system, right, which can be an embedding, which is our case, or it can be, let's say, to the Scandra, it can be open source. The query is sent to the search document search system, which will revert back with the relevant document pieces, and then we create a context out of those for OpenAI, and then we send the whole thing to OpenAI to get the response. But the problem here is, let's say if I do good morning, right? So I'm not saying anything specific. So now in this case, although you see the good morning has got nothing to do with the actual Q&A perspective, right? But it still goes to the search system, right? Which is not needed. And although this response we could have gotten back directly from OpenAI rather than this query going to the search system, right? So this is just one example here. Another is the context completion, which I'll explain a little bit more in the next uh, implementation that we will discuss, right? Now, how do we avoid that? Now, the function implementation helps us to avoid this. Right? And the way it works is, let's look at. Now, this at the top is the current way we have implemented it, right? So the user sends a query, it goes through the embedding or the search system, and we create a context, and then we send this to OpenAI. Now, the way the functions will work is we extract this whole thing, the embedding and the search system, out into a function which sits on one side, right? It doesn't sit in the direct path between the user query and the GenAI. So in this case, all the queries are sent to the GenAI. GenAI then decides whether it needs the function to be called to get the more context or not, right? For example, in this case, if the question is good morning or the user query is good morning, GenAI will respond directly back to the user, right? It doesn't have to call a function. But if the question is relevant for the document and it needs specific context, GenAI will decide and call the function uh, with the relevant arguments and get the context back. Now let's see the implementation in the demo first, and then we'll look at how the functions are implemented. Okay, so this is a health part that I built. Okay, so this is now based on Care health insurance documents. Okay, so this isn't based on the user stories per se, right? So this is a proper health part now. So let's say if I do good morning on this one, I'll explain this thing in a little bit detail, but here we are not calling any embeddings or anything, right? Here it is straightforward saying good morning, how can I assist with that? Let's say I talk about so this is the question, tell me about eligibility criteria of freedom. So this is one of the products that here has. Okay, so now in this case, you see it goes to the embedding. It tries to figure out, the documents for the tier freedom. It understands that it needs to know this stuff, and then it will come back with, this is eligibility criteria for the freedom. Now, one thing which here we can do, which we couldn't do with the standard Q&A implementation in the embedding is, now let's say if I ask a question, uh, tell me same about Supreme. Now you see the question is, I am not saying eligibility criteria. I am saying same. Now, if this question was to go directly to the embedding, this wouldn't work, right? Same is won't get any match from a Supreme perspective. But let's see what happens if I do it this way. You see, what OpenAI has done is, since the question has gone directly to OpenAI rather than the embedding system, it has changed my question based on the context that was in previous one. What are the eligibility criteria for the Supreme product? Now it knows that I'm talking about eligibility because earlier the question was about eligibility and I'm saying tell me about the same. Now this thing you can't do if you are using embedding directly, right? And here you see that we get the eligibility criteria for the Supreme product. Now you can see this intelligence follows through. For example, if now if I say um, tell me details about impedance coverage in it. Now in this case, I'm talking about ambulance coverage, but I'm not talking about whether I'm talking about Supreme, I'm talking about Freedom, or I'm talking about any other product, right? Now again, this thing, if you send this to the embedding or any search engine or search document search directly, it will match to any document which is talking about ambulance coverage. But let's see if I do this, what happens. Tell me about ambulance coverage in Supreme, right? So it figures out that I'm talking about a Supreme. It also has figured out I'm talking about a Supreme product, right? And it matches everything in Supreme. Now this again wouldn't be possible if you are going to the document search engine directly. And here it says the ambulance coverage is available for so and so. So now let's look at how this is implemented. Okay. So this is the function definition that I have provided. So what it says is what is the production, what is the function name, right? And what does this function provide, right? It provides you the details about the product. You have to give it a little bit elaborative description about what this function is and what information will it provide. Now the other thing is the fields which are to be passed, the arguments which needs to be passed to the function, these are populated by OpenAI based on the user question. For example, here I'm saying, give me the product name based on whatever the user's question is. So this parameter specify the names, and again you have to go through a little bit more detailed description of what this product name is. Let's leave it out this one. This is just an experimental here. But you see the user input. This is the user query. Now here what I'm saying is, please ensure that the user input is rephrased into a proper question. This is what it is, right? Correcting any spelling mistake. It is crucial not to skip or remove any part. And also ensure that the identified focus of the question is included as a part of the question. Now what it is doing is, based on the user response, it is trying to put the context into this one based on the history of the conversation so far, right? And this is why you see this feature is quite powerful, right? It can look at the history, it can look at the context, it can put your arguments for the functions together and allow you to make a little bit better decisions, right? And